Finding a friend in the strangest of places. This is your look at the new Diamond Select, the Iron Giant PVC diorama statue. Arriving on Earth from an unknown point of origin, the Iron Giant explores his new environment and befriends a young Hogarth Hughes. But as aggressive actions are taken against him by the military, he must battle his violent programming to be who he chooses to be. This gallery diorama of the Iron Giant is based on his appearance in the movie The Iron Giant. It is made of high-quality PVC and features a high level of detailing and exacting paint applications. It was designed by Joe Allard. Before we discover the details of this stranger from the unknown, the first thing we're going to do is figure out how tall the new gallery statue of the Iron Giant is. And while I'm getting that in order, if I can, if you don't mind, let me just throw off an intergalactic thank you to the far reaches of space and reach my friends at Diamond Select who took the time and provided the sample of the Iron Giant that we're having a look at in this review. If you're in the market of picking this one up for yourself, and certainly don't blame you, then you're looking at the statue standing 11.7 or a little over 11.5 inches in height. And switching that to centimeters, then you're looking at it standing almost 30 centimeters, 29.9 to be exact. Sadly, I guess you could really consider the Iron Giant to be a commercial failure. I believe it took about $70 million to produce the film and didn't even make a fraction of that on the big screen. And yet years later, the Iron Giant would find huge cult following and considered by many to be a cult classic, myself included. Let's have a closer look at the gallery release that Diamond has put out, and I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Of course, the first thing we're going to be looking at, I'll pick the statue up and we'll examine the display base bottom. I like that there's color here. I mean, really, when you look at the rest of Iron Giant, he's so kept to very muted grays that it does really need a whole lot of additional color. And you get that here with the junk heap that he's standing inside of. So much so that he's actually stepping on top of this car here that has been crushed by his weight. But I do like that there has some afforded browns. Of course, you've got the mustard yellow for the car. The canister is done in a much darker brown. This adds a whole lot of additional coloring because, again, the Iron Giant himself is all kept to grays. I really like the attention to detail that they put in here. For example, you've got the little cabinet here that has a partly hinged door. It's not something that you can open and close, mind you, but he's got a couple of little oil tanks there in the front. It looks like there's a boat in the back. Let me just spin this around so you guys can see it. Very nice detailing done to the boat itself. On the back, there's also a little small oven, a giant wheel, a picket fence with a few pickets perhaps missing. Really nice, again, attention to detail. And I like the fact, again, that they use the browns and the yellows really thrown in there just to add that necessarily pop of color. That poor car, that poor smashed car. What's left of it certainly is very nicely detailed. Again, you've got some areas where the door have been sort of smashed in. Nice discoloration of color. And again, you've got that warm color of the yellow, but then you've got the pops of color with the black on the front of the headlights and the bumper there as well. Very, very nicely detailed on the base itself. I'll spin it upside down or flip it upside down. I know, yes, there's not a whole lot to really look at on the underside, but just again to show you, while there's not much excitingness happening, that's a word, on the underside of the base, just again to show you how it's molded, how it comes out from the plant, and then again how so nicely it's painted along the top from Diamond Select. As for the sculpt of the Iron Giant, I think Diamond has delivered a very faithful recreation of how it appears in the film. Although, while you're looking around it from head to toe and along the bottom base that we've already examined, nowhere on this statue will you find a young Hogarth Hughes. He has been omitted. Now, I have seen other releases that they've done where they've included a Hogarth Hughes. This is a case where, like I said, you're not going to be getting him. You're just getting the Iron Giant. And again, a really nice, faithful recreation. So nice, in fact, the eyes have been colored in that I almost feel like these are lighting up and glowing, but that's not obviously the case. There is no light up options on this mechanized robot, but again, very nicely detailed. You got the little rivet points there on the back of its torso. I've noticed on this one, where maybe in the past I've commented that Diamond really adds these additional depths of color by dry brushing paint over top of it. You really don't get a lot of that here on the Iron Giant. And it does really make some sense that they kept it really only just to the molding of the plastic. They didn't feel the need to add excessive amounts of brushing of paint, because I really feel like that would pull away from it looking like its movie counterpart and making it look a little bit more realistic. Again, I really like the little rivet points that they put everywhere on this, more so primarily on the torso. It's also got there here on the belt and the lower section where, again, his legs would be attached in place. Things that you would expect to move on this obviously will disappoint you because it's only just a gallery statue, so it's really molded as such. But like the way it looks, it almost makes me think I could actually move the arm. I would be able to swivel it back and forth. Me forcing it right now would only result in this breaking and me getting very upset with myself. I do really like the detailing that they put to the hands as well. Like I said, there's not a whole lot of color happening here with the Iron Giant, primarily kept to a very purple-based gray. Even more of that darker shade, again, when you get to the lower torso, and you've got the big giant S, very molded nicely in place. Could this be something that they could consider as a light up down the road? Obviously, yes, they could probably approach the idea of doing a light-up Iron Giant if they haven't done so already. But again, because the way that they've painted those eyes, let's just look at those one last time. What a great-looking head sculpt. Because, again, the way they've painted those eyes, not to mention the way that they've outlined it in black, it does almost fool and trick the eye to make you think that they're lit up, even if they're not. Also really liking the proud pose that they put him in as well. Sort of a heroic stance, his arms bent to the side and touching sort of what you would consider to be his waist area. And the way that he's propped himself up on this smashed car does make him very proud and presentable. Again, I really like the color scheme on this one. More so, again, when you look at the top half of the Iron Giant, or like more of the Iron Giant end of the statue, yes, you're going to be getting more of those grays and darker colors of gray. And this is where a lot of the color is happening. Again, I really like that contrast. Even like the areas of his legs do get afforded some additional grays. It's not all just this color happening. In fact, like even if you look at the little areas that they're pinned in place, where again, like the leg would be riveted onto the knee, this is a slightly darker shade of gray. Also, there's some darker shade of gray happening in what you could consider, I suppose, to be the thigh area of the robot. We spin it around again, nice detailing done to the hands themselves. You can sort of almost imagine that those hands would be able to open and close. Real nice attentions to detail. Unfortunately, though, and this is only, I'm sure, specific to mine, I've got this one little scratch. I almost feel bad to draw your attention to it because I'm sure that's all you're going to be looking at. But yeah, I've got this one little scratch here. It almost looks like there's a little scratch up the top here. Now, you could say it's just scratched the way he gets the damage done in the film. But yeah, unfortunately, there is no way around it. I've got a little bit of a nick right there. And it feels, when I'm running my finger against it, that it's not actually so much paint. It looks like it's been scratched into the surface of the plastic. Not really sure how that happened. Not that I should really be admitting this, but if you look at the back section of his torso, I'm pointing at them right now, there's these oval-shaped pieces of plastic that are actually carved in. They're not panel-lined. Now, I'm sure it may have something to do with the fact that these are sandwiched together. Maybe that's what these pieces are for. But just mentioning earlier about how I wish this could light up, there were a couple of times I had to, again, I hate to admit it, that I pressed these in, almost in the hope that I would find and trigger some sort of light up effect. And obviously that's not the case. But I think it's just the way that the two halves are sandwiched together. And maybe these are just the back pegs when you do put those two halves together. Despite my silliness of thinking this could light up, I'm really impressed with how this one turned out. Yes, unfortunately, it's missing Hogarth Hughes, but Diamond has, good news, they have released other renditions of the Iron Giant, some with Hogarth. And while this one doesn't unfortunately include it, it's still a really nice rendition of a beloved classic. Didn't do so well in theaters, but something that became a cult classic long afterwards. When the Iron Giant hit theaters in the late 90s, I was already in a phase where I was less interested in seeing animated movies and more interested in seeing action and horror films with my friends. I almost feel in a way the Iron Giant came at the wrong time. If it came out now, I feel it almost would have been a more successful movie than when it did when it first came out. The problem with the movie is that the darker tones, not to mention, of course, the animation style, probably would have been too scary for kids back then to be enjoying, and older audiences weren't really checking out animated movies as much as they are now. Fast forward, of course, several years after the movie fails commercially in theaters, the movie is now considered a cult classic. And that's always the case when it comes to these cult classic films. They never succeed well on the big screen. It's a slow burn, something that's mentioned from one person to another. Hey, have you seen The Iron Giant? Or you maybe stumble onto it while watching TV. Whatever the case may be, the movie's now considered a beloved classic. The Iron Giant here presented perfectly from Diamond Select. Yes, unfortunately, is missing Hogarth Hughes, but it does still deliver exactly the look and feel I would want from The Iron Giant. Short of the fact it doesn't light up, though again, looking at those eyes, I could swear to you those do light up. Everything else to the statue looks really good. I like the pose. I like the display-based junk heap bottom that they gave to him. And again, I like the fact that the colors on the base are much more warmer colors to the contrast of the cold exterior for the Iron Giant. Quite a stellar-looking release from Diamond Select Toys. Again, a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select who provided the sample of the Iron Giant Gallery diorama statue that we had a look at in this review. Let me know down below in the comments section other examples you can think of movies that commercially failed but were considered cult classics later on. Just remember also, John Carpenter's The Thing tanked in theaters. Just throwing that out there. Also, if you're new to the channel and liking the content you're seeing and would like to certainly stay on board, consider the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below and turning that bell notification on. And as a friendly reminder from me to you, just know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when you'll find new videos popping up on this channel. We're going to be having a look at some collectibles, figures, and more from Diamond Select. So, of course, keep your peepers peeled to this channel Monday to Friday at 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.